So, Vicky, it's been a while since we were in Baghdad a few months ago. And as you know, we've been paying attention to the Iraqi elections. They are scheduled for November 11th, which is next week. So we thought we would have a discussion about some of the things we're watching out for. There are lots of different issues going on in the Iraqi elections. But some of the things that we're looking at are the sectarian divides, upcoming new parties, possibly the civic movements and how they're doing, the significance of elections in Baghdad, voter turnout, and women's participation in these elections. So, as we know, the government formation can take time in Iraq. In fact, in the last elections in 2021, it took 1 year for the government to form. So, even though the elections will be on the 11th of November, we will have no actual results in terms of government formation, probably for some time. Now, one of the things that I've been looking at is the sectarian divide. As we know, Iraq is divided among different sectarian parties, Shia, Sunni, the Kurds, and some secular parties are starting to make some movements. But what I find interesting in this election is that there is a lot of infighting among the Shia parties in particular. Most parties will be running separately, and then the coalitions and alliances are built after the elections. It's almost like a matryoshka doll in reverse. You know, you start with the small results of your own party, and then you start building on top of that different parties to form a coalition. And it's coming down to two personalities and parties run by those two personalities. One is Shia al-Sudani, who is the current prime minister. He has a coalition. He's formed a coalition in this parliament, but his own party is the Furitian movement, and he has a small election coalition of reconstruction and development. The other big player is Nouri al-Maliki, a former prime minister who heads the state of law. And he is also hoping to have enough seats that he can form a coalition to become prime minister again. There are some significant smaller Shia parties, of course, including al-Hakim's party, Hikmah, and they will have some success, particularly in the south. The Sunnis are also divided, and what I see in the Sunni sectarian divide is actually a generational issue. The former speaker Al-Habusi, who's from Anbar, he's young, he's 44 years old, and was ousted as Speaker of the Parliament in 2023 by a court ruling. His main rival within the Sunni sects is al-Mashadani, who was also a speaker. He's the current speaker, but he was speaker before as well, and he's been an MP for 20 years. So to me, I see it as a generational issue. And Vicky, I know that you've been following the civic parties, which also raise a generational issue, and the fact that in 2019, the protests, the Tishrini movement started. And so how do you think they may do in these elections?
Well, it's true. I'm watching these elections and waiting to see how the performance of these groups will be. While there is no group that can present itself or even a coalition as the representative of the Tishrin movement, but there is the coalition Al-Badil, which means alternative, that was launched in May 2025. And that includes 13 political parties, and they are running under one branding, presenting themselves as a civic movement, facing sectarian patronage that they want to, let's say, break without saying replace, but they are trying to present the same values and the same slogans that were in the protest in 2019, but as I said, without taking the branding or pretending that they are the ones representing this protest movement. So let's see how it will go. While they are presenting a strong message around citizenship and civic movement and about building institutions, there is still this lack of the real steps of policies and how they will be delivering the services. And I think they still have like few days to make sure that this message is well delivered.
I think one of the challenges they faced in the last parliament was that they didn't feel, once they got to parliament, they didn't feel that they had the critical mass to be effective. They had no strategy. They seemed to flounder. I met a couple of the members of parliament in 2023, and while they were well intentioned, they just didn't seem to have the strategy and the support to really make a dent in the parliament. So hopefully they'll get enough seats in these elections to see that they can make a change.
I totally agree with you. Like half the battle is before the elections, but then once elected, we still need to see how they will be able to reunite over one strong coalition within the parliament. And again, it depends how many seats they will get. But also, since the last elections, I think that there was a big problem in the structuring and organizing after the elections. So organizing teams on elections day will be very important, especially for emerging groups. Within these elections, we have 8,000 polling centers with 40,000 polling stations. So it will not be easy to organize unless we have teams and we have representatives on the polling station. So this is more challenging for the emerging groups and for the new coalitions. So hopefully that the campaign that started on October 3 officially and is running till November 8, during this time, I hope that they will have, that they had enough time and resources to gather a strong team to be working on the elections day, because all the elections is played on this day. So GOTV efforts are very important, and I'm watching this as well.
Well, it's true. And I think that one of the challenges also to secular movements and civic movements is to talk about issues. You know, sectarian parties have their issue. It's protect our own and represent our own sect. But talking to friends in Baghdad, for instance, nobody has been talking very much about solutions to the water shortages. Yes,
Exactly.
last week there was an agreement now between Iraq and Turkey to try and ease some of the problems. But a friend of mine was saying, you can see the riverbed of the Tigris. You know, we have no water in Baghdad. And issues in Baghdad are also economic. Well, there has been a great boom of construction, and all of the politicians this election have been inaugurating hospitals and opening roads. There have been very little policy platform ideas put forward about how to deal with some of the very serious issues in Iraq. And Baghdad is an interesting microcosm of the country, because not only does it have the most seats, it has 69 of the 329 seats in parliament, so 20% of the parliamentary seats will come from Baghdad, but it is also a very diverse governorate, and beyond the city of Baghdad, but also the governorate. So there will be a lot of competition, and we have seen a lot of competition in Baghdad. Just the amount of posters and the amount of rallies will be important. But you talked about the importance of get out the vote efforts. And one of the things we will be watching is the issue of voter turnout, because there has been criticism about low voter turnout and how turnout is decreasing over the years. In 2021, there was roughly 40% of voters turned out. And the registration process in Iraq makes it difficult because they have a biometric system of voter cards, and they've been improving the biometric cards over the last couple of elections. But about 21.5 million people are registered to vote. But experts say that there are about 28 million people that should be eligible to vote. But if you haven't picked up or registered for your biometric card, you will not be able to vote, regardless of whether you want to on election day. The other thing that will affect turnout is the boycott by Muqtada al-Sadr, and he has boycotted the elections in terms of not having any candidates running, and then has made comments about his supporters should actually boycott the vote. And this will have significance in heavy Shia regions such as the south and also a little bit in Baghdad. So that's something that we will be watching. The other and final thing that we always watch at BCI is women's political participation. And I know, Vicky, that you've been looking at some of the women candidates and what they've been doing.
Yeah, like I was even meeting with some of these candidates, and we were talking about they feel all the time as if they are under the microscope. So even when you read that someone is supporting women, or even when they meet with someone who is supporting their campaigns, there is always this advice that will be given to them at the end, people telling them what to do, and usually telling them to be more polite or to be more discreet in their campaigns. And this is something that they are really struggling with. So let's say that the environment in general is not really supportive to women political participation. And we were talking also about the harassment that they were facing on the social media, for example. And some of them are choosing to keep posting on their platform. Other women are choosing to um, post less on social media, work more in direct contact with people, or use more their platforms. And frankly, both approaches are valid. It's up to them to decide how they feel better during their campaigns, but it is a real struggle for them.
Sure. And in Iraq, there is a 25% quota. So at least 25% of the seats will be held by women. Unfortunately, I think so many parties who are in charge of the nomination process, it's a closed list system, they see that 25% as the ceiling. So that's all they have to match, and they don't want to go any farther to encourage and support women candidates.
Yeah, but also beyond support, there is some kind of sabotage for their visibility. Like, we know that a lot of women candidates were reporting that their posters were being hidden or even torn down, or sometimes there is mockery or drawing on their photos. So, yes, there is this limit, or it should be a minimum of seats given within the quota. But there is also, as I said before, the struggle for their visibility and for their active participation. But we were seeing a video on X last time together about one candidate who was presenting her program, her electoral program, and trying to break the standard way of doing politics, right?
Yeah, and that's really great. And I think she's a candidate from the Tashrini movement, but I think if more and more women could talk to voters individually and try and find ways to overcome it's very often personal hate towards, hate speech towards women candidates. As you know, you've been a candidate a few times in Lebanon. That it is very personalized, and
Okay.
unlike the hate speech or the speech against male candidates.
True. And like as we always do in all our trainings and based on our experience in several countries, direct contact is still one of the most powerful tools in elections. And if these women are able to gather with them volunteers and a strong team, then these resources will be more helpful in direct contact with voters more than anything else. And we're hoping that this will be able to build a stronger campaign for them.
Inshallah. So, Vicky, thanks very much for joining me. And let's meet after the election results are known, and maybe we'll
Yeah,
have some more insights.
definitely. Thank you, Francesca.